All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for choosing us to spend your time at your lunch hour. I know you have lots of options in entertainment, and I'm just thrilled that you're here today. My name is Left Hash. I'm here for BTFDtv. My actual name is JD, and you can find me at Twitter at Left Hash if you have any questions. My chat does not actually work, so you're going to actually have to send me the real thing if you want to talk. Uh, Special thanks goes out to Jack. Just like to say he asked me to do this a while back, and this is kind of a I don't know. This is He told me to talk about what I know and where I learned my chops and what I have to offer, and so this is kind of what we've got. Um, Any rate, that's what we got. So today uh, I've got Tim, who is a bond option trader or was back in the day. Um, we met in December of 2002. I was working with a little local named Fig at the time, and Tim was in the pit. He backed me in early 2004, and by 2005, we had started a small company together to trade bond options. Um, for any of you who have read my blog, which looks like about 13 of you, he's listed in a couple of stories as one of the three kings. He earned that title rightly. Um, Above all, he is a friend, a mentor, and he is someone that actually taught me how to trade. And in this industry, very few people will actually teach you how to trade. And so I'm going to toss it over to him. I'll let him introduce himself. And ladies and gentlemen, this is my friend Tim.
Well, hey, I appreciate the kind words, JD. I'm not sure all that stuff is true, but I do appreciate it. My name is Tim. I started working down at the Board of Trade in 1995. I'll actually go back prior to that. I went to the University of Wisconsin, Madison, and I was a finance major. Thought I was going to go into commercial banking when I was going to school, and I was all ready to take a job with PNC in Pittsburgh, and this gentleman named Dave Shore came down towards the end of my interview process, and we had a great interview. He had a small boutique trading firm. I think they used to be part of a larger hedge fund called Blackhawk, and they probably had 7 or 8 traders, another 10 people in the support staff, and they were looking to hire 4 or 5 assistant traders every year. They'd see if they'd hire 4 or 5, pay us next to nothing, and see if any of us would stick. So enjoyed the interview. It was different from everything else I'd had to that point. It was casual. It was laid back. They brought me down to Chicago a couple weeks later, and he walked me down the floor. And I come from a fairly rural part of central Wisconsin, and as soon as I got down the floor at the CBOT at the time in the old room, for those of you who are my age, a little older, um, and that was it. As soon as I saw it, I was like, that's it. That's where I want to be. And we got back up to the office, and we talked a little while longer. And right there on the spot, I was like, you know what? If you offer me a job, I'm gonna take it. And a couple weeks later, got my acceptance offer, which was nothing. I mean, virtually nothing. But it was better than going out to Pittsburgh, at least it proved to be. So that's kind of how I got down there. I went to work for Dave and a gentleman named Joe Zednick, who was kind of I think he was the capital behind the operation, and started working in the spring of 1995. And the nice thing back then, for you guys once again who are my age, or a little older, that we used to have a night trading session that started at 6 o'clock and went to 9 o'clock every night in the summer. And then I think when we had fall back, it would go from 5 to 8. And it was a great place for young traders to get some experience, in a laid back, low key kind of setting. So we'd come in, work from 6 to 3:30, and then come back at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, get ready for the night session. Did that for about 6 months, and that was the only product that they were trading at the time. So I think starting in November of '95, I started trading in the bond options pit, and it didn't look back. I spent almost my entire career trading the 30 years. Spent a little time in the fives, a little bit of time in the tens, but predominantly it was 30-year options. I love the fast pace. The movement was always second to none. So if you're a gamma whore like I was and still am, it was a great place to spend some time trading. Um,
Understands the language that we like to use that goes back and forth. So tell us real quick what a gamma whore does.
that is somebody who appreciates the benefit of being long options. I don't know if you want to get into a definition of what gamma is and how you come up with it, but it's someone, you're taking advantage of underlying volatility in a security. You want it to move, and you want it to move a lot. And I always felt that there was always some unknown out there that was going to drive the market, and that was a good enough excuse for me to figure out a way to get long. And I think that pretty much defined my entire career and probably a chunk of yours when you came on, was how are we going to find entry points to get long options? The shorter the date, the more I loved them. It was easier to quantify the risk, and that's I think that's if I look back on my career, that's how I think I would be. That would define how I made money and my success down there. That's an interesting question because I don't think the nice thing about Lakeshore, and there were definitely some positives with the company. They had a with when they were hiring 4 to 5 kids every year, they definitely had a system in place where they'd go through and they'd educate us on what options were and how to trade them. And but they also were very clear that, hey, we're going to give you the opportunity, but we're not going to spoon feed you the information. You need to go down there and get it. It's a very it's a very aggressive business. And if you're passive and if you're expecting someone to sit there and just constantly feed you information, feed you how to do things, you're just not going to succeed, especially on the floor. I mean, there might be a trading venue for you somewhere, but it's certainly not going to be down there. If you're waiting for someone else to kind of fill you in on how to make money and how things are done. But I would say Dave Shore, the guy who interviewed me, and he was the head trader there. He certainly took time to explain to us, the kind of the final points of trading. And I also have to credit, I had a pretty good background at Wisconsin. For some reason, I liked options. I liked statistics. I took a lot of both as an undergrad. And so when I came in, I think I had an advantage over the other 4 guys that were hired at the same time. One of them actually worked for the Board of Trade, and I think at a compliance capacity. And everybody else had, I don't even think they had business background. So when they came in, they were pretty green. And I just, it's just not, some of that stuff, the pretty heady concepts are not the easiest things to pick up if you're not prepared for them. And I just think I was prepared for it, and I wanted it. I mean, I just wanted it so bad. I was competitive, and I think that helped a lot.
Um, all right, you guys might have missed that question. I think I messed up the audio. My bad. But back to talking about the older times, flows and customers. Obviously, a lot of people complain nowadays that there are no real customers. It's all a computer. Back when you were in the pit, you obviously had the advantage of standing next to the brokers, and the orders were coming in. Now it's all on the screen. Kind of talk about what it was back then for the pit trader to know and feel the market.
Yeah, you know what? That is. I mean, I think that was probably the most important thing, besides knowing how to trade options, was being able to sit down there and feel the market and feel things going on, feel the intensity uptick, feel the anxiety in a broker's voice. And I don't think, and you can go ask a bunch of guys who haven't transitioned off the floor as well as you have, or not at all, that once you took them off out of the floor and they didn't have that opportunity to stand next to somebody, develop that relationship. I mean, you knew in the cadence of somebody's voice, you knew what was going to happen. You knew the urgency on whether or not the order had to be filled, or if they were just trying to request a quote and they were doing it for their local. You get a good feeling for that after standing next to somebody for 5 years. and listening to them talk about their kids going to this school or that school, and then you get to know people, and there's definitely subtleties that you'd pick up, and you would know how to adjust your markets accordingly. And so the benefit of being on the floor is it was great, especially when 10 years ago, 15 years ago, the orders weren't the orders weren't concentrated in the in one end where I think today we have the same amount of volume that we had 15 years ago, maybe even a little more. But the volume today, I think most people would tell you that are still on the floor, is just, it's not, the volume isn't as good as it used to be. The quality of the volume, you have less players, and it is dominated by players who are trading larger volumes. So, most guys down there today aren't capitalized well enough to take advantage of 20, 30, 40,000 lot orders that come in. I mean, they trade at multiple prices, and the way a lot of the floor traders are set up is that they can take the first couple levels on, and after that they have to sit on the side. 15 years ago, there was so much different paper. You probably had an equal amount of smaller and medium-sized paper that you could come in, and you could navigate around the marketplace as a market maker. If you got stuck, you were another order or two away from getting out. Today I haven't been down there for a while, but from the people I stay in touch with, including yourself, it seems like some of these orders come in, you get absolutely buried. And a lot of the guys today, they don't think 5 minutes beyond where they're at. If an order comes in and they get on the first, maybe the first half of that order, the second half, they can't participate in, because they don't know what they're going to do with it. They certainly don't want to inventory it, and a lot of times that could, it can just get worse from there. So, I would say a lot of people would say that, 15 years ago, the quality of the paper was substantially better than it was today. And I think people today, I think the paper today, I think some people would say it's smarter than it was 15 years ago. You had a lot of dumb paper. Maybe not as dumb as it was in the 80s when the savings and loans were down there trading it, but there was some pretty dumb paper about 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, and for those of you who are joining us late, this is my friend Tim. He spent 15 years in the bond option pit at the Chicago Board of Trade, and he is now semi-retired. He gets to change his lifestyle a little bit. He's down in North Carolina. Real quick, somebody asked me, who signed your basketball?
Oh, that's we got Bo Ryan on one of them, and we got the entire 2008 Big Ten champions on the other one.
Good. I just needed to get that out there. You're welcome, Market Plunger. Hey,
Most wins in the Big Ten since Bo Ryan took over the program, just in case there's any Illini or Michigan State or any other fan base out
there. Thank you. I appreciate that as an Illini fan. So I got a couple more questions, and we're going to shift into kind of some stories about what happened and what the old times used to be. That's right. And anybody who wants to wish you a happy birthday, it was last month. What do you think the future of the exchange is? You were a participant down here, and you were talking about paper being customer paper. More and more paper is headed, at least in equities, to dark pools. For us, a lot of stuff is getting block traded. What do you see as an outsider looking in, or as a customer now? What do you see as the future of the exchange, at least from the option level?
Well, I mean, the exchange has got a vested interest in closing down that building. I mean, it's cost prohibitive to keep it open. I can't even imagine what the yearly nut is to keep a floor like that open. But if my information is correct, I think the exchange, the CME, has recently sold the actual exchange and maybe one of the buildings next to it, and then entered into a leaseback agreement with whoever the buyer was to lease the floor space, I think for 8 years, and that was a year ago. I would not hold my breath if I was the owner, the new owner of that building, to think that the CME is going to re-up that lease in 8 years. Especially if there's not a lot of organic growth in the option and futures business at the CME, they're going to be like everybody else in this economy. They're going to find a way to increase their NOI, and it's going to be through cutting costs, and that means closing that building down. I just don't think the reason why everybody said that options didn't gravitate to the screen as fast as futures, because they were more complex by nature, and that you needed to have someone on the floor. You needed to have a market maker next to you that you could grab when things really got hectic. And I think technology has caught up to that, and I don't think that that argument holds, much water anymore. So I don't think that we need to keep the floor open because, because of the complexity of of options. I mean, the futures have gravitated to the screen. They certainly don't need the floor open anymore. So I guess all that's left is, is probably the options, and that looks like from, I still check the website every day. I can't help it. I'm a junkie. But it looks like 60 to 65% of the volume has already gravitated, electronically. And I got to think, the stuff that's left on the floor, a lot of that is just local to local business unwinding what's happening on the screen.
Yeah.
You can probably talk to it better than I can. I haven't been around it. Every time I see a big bond move like yesterday, make no mistake, I wish I was still up there trading, but whatever.
Yeah, I know you miss it. All right, one last question here is basically, what is your advice for young traders? Like, what is it? If I was just getting into the industry, what would you tell me? And it can't be don't get into this industry. Like, what's your actual advice?
No, I mean the industry's great. I'll tell you what, I was dating my wife at the time, or was going to be my wife, we decided to move to Chicago. And my response was, like, I didn't know much about the industry, but I was 20. I think I was 22 when I graduated. And the great thing about this industry, and I don't care if you're going to end up being a prop trader in Chicago, or you're going to work for, one of the large banks, somewhere else, maybe in Charlotte. But you're going to find out quick. It's one of those industries where you're going to find out in a year or two whether it's for you or not. You're not going to be stuck here for 10 years and go, wow, it's just my career path didn't take the trajectory that I thought it would. I mean, I know a lot of guys that were hired at Lakeshore that walked down the floor, and in 6 months, I watch these guys cry. I watch them check out. You'll know, and it'll be the same for you in front of a screen. You'll know if this business is for you within a year or two. And for better or for worse, your career as a trader is defined by one thing and one thing only. It's how much money you make, and you'll know that pretty quick. I mean, once somebody takes you, and you're gonna need to find a mentor to show you how to do it. You're not going to, log on to Interactive Broker and just start, banging this stuff around, and it's so easy, and start making money. You're going to find somebody, hopefully get into a system that has a history of bringing up young traders, and you'll know. You'll know if you can. It's definitely a different environment than any other profession. People are very pragmatic in this industry, and there's not a lot of I'll put this, but if you're not making money, they're not going to keep you around. So that's the best advice I can say. If you like it and you want to try it, and you're the money is appealing, it's certainly worth giving it a try, because you're not gonna regret it. It's gonna be it's gonna be a year or two out of your career, and then you can move on to something else if it doesn't work. But certainly, if you're hungry and that seems like something you want to do, plop in an old copy of Wall Street and then go find a job.
That's fantastic. So everybody who continues to ask me for a job, you heard that they still exist down here, but you got to find somebody to mentor you. All right, let's talk about the floor. What was your biggest? I don't need to know your biggest win. What was your biggest trade? What's the story that, if you are going to try and impress somebody by telling them you were a big swinging dick, what do you tell them? Or do you tell them how, the most you ever lost? Or what is it that you tell them to remind yourself of what it used to be?
Well, you got to throw a number, especially if you're talking to people who aren't familiar with the industry. You have to throw a number out there. Nothing impresses people more than numbers. But I think the biggest trade, and I don't know if it's just one trade, but I think when I really started increasing my risk, and it was calculated, make no mistake about it, and you were there for most of that, when we transitioned from market making, which involved virtually no risk, to taking positions, we started taking substantial positions in short-dated options. We felt it was easier to, or I felt it was easier to quantify the risk, and I felt like I could handle it better than trading longer-dated options. And I just think I was good at it. And part of that was I think sometime in 2005 we had a couple new customers that came into the 30-year, and they started trading short-dated options that weren't they were flex options. They weren't standard expiration. They would come in and trade really short dated options with unique strikes. And I got involved with them early. I think I was the first person to trade. I know I was the first person to trade it of any substantial size, and that just fueled my appetite for gamma, and it really shaped how I kind of thought about risk and how I monitored it and how I tried to neutralize it. And I loved it. That was for the next 4 or 5 years. That's how I traded. I mean, I would trade the longer dated stuff, but more of a market maker instead of a position trade. But the short dated stuff from a month on in, I would take substantial positions. You were there. We had theta bills that would reach $250,000 a night, and that might not be substantial to some bigger groups, but to somebody who's trading their own capital, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of gamma. Sit down there playing poker in the pit, and having a couple hundred bonds in every 4 ticks, up and down a half point, and just hoping we get filled and stuff. Same thing playing 8 hours of Halo up in the office. Just put our hedges in and trade the gamma. But
That is that is true. You and I used to slip up and play a little Halo 2 for hours at a clip. What's the biggest single trade you ever took down? What's the most quantity you ever took down as an option trade?
wow, that's a shoot. I got to think about that. There's some times where I've taken down some spreads, which obviously there's not that much risk in spreads. And I've taken down, I think, a 5,000 lot in spreads, but I've taken down, in outright options, and I think most of that stuff was, were flex trades back in '05 and '06. I remember it may not have been one exact trade, but over the course of 2 days, we had a gentleman come in. This is right when the nat gas numbers started to pick up in importance. It was nat gas was starting to trade $10 or $11 or something, whatever it was. And we had a guy come in, and he came in on a Monday afternoon, and he wanted to know, it was like where's you're on the 128 straddle. We were trading like 128.12. And I remember the broker, Mark Aronson, standing next to me, and he wants to market this thing. This is still when a lot of guys weren't interested in trading the flex product. And this guy came in, and he sold me 500 straddles at, I think it was like 30 ticks. And most of it, there wasn't that much risk there. And at the time, there wasn't that much risk.
I'll fix that sound. Yeah, I see you guys all tweeting at me. I know that he lost his sound. I'll try and get it back real quick.
Hi, JD. JD, can you hear me? I hope that was your problem, not mine. I have no idea where I cut off. If you have any idea, let me know, and I will start back from where I.
So the story up to now goes this. You're long 10,000 of the 128 strike, and we drift down to 128.03. So take it from there.
All right, so I think for about a year and a half, we had the best poker games going on in the pit. As much as the Board of Trade and CME would like to deny it, we had unbelievable poker games that went on all day. I mean, JD knows that he saw it. They would start at 7:40 in the morning and probably go to 1:50 in the afternoon. Low ball environments, not much to do. You play poker in the pit. So we started playing poker. I figure I'm down a bunch of money, and that's just the way it's going to be. And at 9 o'clock, all of a sudden that gas number comes out. Actually, I think at 9:30, and we're sitting up at like 128.10. All of a sudden, the next print is like 128.01, and uh, I've got orders for 1,000 lot of bonds resting at 128 even, 31, 30, 29, 28. I think I bought 5,000 bonds over the course of 5 ticks, just because I was so nervous that we're going to retrace and head back up, and I wouldn't have enough. We ended up breaking that nat gas number came out. So I think it like the supply and stock, whatever the storage number came out, it was so low, the drawdown was so high that nat gas just took off, and we ended up dropping a full point, got down to 126.30, and then we popped. And so this guy, the guy who sold me this stuff, I mean, he's getting his ass reamed, and we go all the way down. So this guy starts coming in, and he starts selling like the 127.20 calls, and he sells them for that Wednesday, and then he starts selling the 128 calls out for that Friday and that Monday. So I ended up buying, I think, 9,500 of my futures all the way down. We ended up making $500,000 that day, and then I had probably another 500 or 1,000 short dated options, out for Friday and Monday. The worst part about that day is that, and this is, I probably shouldn't even bring it up, but I had a partner at the time who I had decided that I was going to let share in my profits, and he was watching the Red Sox win their first World Series. Was it ever? I don't know. I hate baseball. Either way, he was at a World Series game, and I got to cut him a check for about $250,000 that day for doing nothing but shoving hot dogs in his fat face.
Sorry, dude.
There's it was bittersweet. I mean, I remember going down the escalator smiling, but inside I'm like, son of a bitch, I wish I had more of that money. Yeah, so that's my best day. My worst day, might as well go. I'm assuming you want to segue right into that one. Yeah, that's a good one because there was two of us who had some pain over the course of a week, and it was the second invasion going into Iraq. And at the time, volatility was trading about 9.5%. It was elevated for about a month and a half, going into the second invasion. And I remember it was a July, and it was an August and September option contract that we were playing with, and I ended up putting on, I think, like 6,500 short August and 10,000 long September. It was still a short gamma trade, which made my skin crawl at the time, but it wasn't that bad. And all of a sudden, the invasion hits, and they decide to absolutely crush Vol. And over the course of 4 days, as I'm adjusting my stuff lower, I ended up losing 730 grand, bringing the SEP down. I think it ended up trading close to 6% volatility. And the beauty of it was there was a jackass in the pit named Noah. We won't say his last name, Kerry, uh, but he just came back and took a job for one of the large banks because he wasn't smart enough to trade on his own. And there was two of us in the pit that had this on, that had a substantial calendar on, and he would come in the morning. He would turn to the other traders around him and say, watch this, go ahead and get short some SEP because I'm going to take it down 10 ticks in the straddle. He would turn around to guys that I've known for over 10 years and tell them what he's going to do, and there was no, we certainly weren't friendly, the two of us. I think he was mad because he didn't have a pot to piss in and I was doing okay. But he would turn to them and have them do this. And these guys that I knew for 10 years would go through brokers and put orders in to get short SEP. And sure enough, he knew that I couldn't buy anymore. He knew the other guy who had the position on couldn't buy anymore. And he would take it down. And eventually, the guys up at Prime, who were kind of monitoring the whole situation. They're like, well, enough's enough. You need to sell out of your September. And I'm like, well, I'm not comfortable doing that. The vol is so low. We're going to, I'm gonna get killed by this with the short gamma. So they would just have me, they'd have me dump out of, 3 to 500 September every morning by 9 o'clock. Didn't matter where the price was, what was going on in the pit. And that was kind of how crude their risk management skills were. They looked at it and said, well, okay, we've got something that we don't understand, so just start taking one side of it off. And and so that's the way it went for about 4 days until it got down to a manageable position. But I was going home with 300 short gamma every night. And the worst part about that, the guy who was running Prime, he was a grain trader at the time. He actually had one of his clerks come into the pit and sell a 25 lot of September straddles as I was puking out of my position, just so he could make a couple extra $1,000 on me, which to this day is it's so wrong in so many ways. But so this was the first half of the month, and I think it was in July. And it was the first half of the month. The whole thing, we unwound it, and I ended up covering all of my August. August rolled off the books, and I ended up staying long a couple hundred gamma from the set. And after it looked like that we were going to go into Iraq, and there was going to be no problem walking right through the entire country. We started flying around, and we rallied off it. We sold back off, and in the course of 2 weeks, I think I was up 100 grand for the month. And it was a great experience. I didn't want to go through it again, but it certainly taught me a couple of valuable lessons about risk and managing my positions. So.
Yeah. So you mentioned clerks. Let's talk a little bit about clerks. What what is a clerk? For those people who have no idea what the floor even looks like anymore, what was a clerk? What was the primary duties of a clerk? And what did we have fun doing with clerks?
Clerks are just trading assistants. They would do anything. If once we made a trade, the clerks would take the trade and go find the other side of the trade, make sure that the quantities, the prices, the strike, everything matched up. They balanced during the day. They'd balance at the end of the day. They'd balance the next morning. They did everything to make the trader's job easy, and so the trader could focus on actually trading. The clerks did it all. They would adjust our option valuations for us. They'd run and get us muffins and coffee during the day, so we wouldn't have to leave the floor. So they did just about everything you could possibly do besides make trades. Some of the clerks we had actually did make trades on our behalf, but it was just trades that we were directing them to do. They'd hedge things for us, hedge futures for us, make option trades on the screen for us, stuff like that.
You know where I'm headed with this.
I'll tell you what, full disclosure, I thought I'd always paid my clerks very well. And that's the knock on a lot of people, a lot of the traders on the floor. They kind of commoditized clerks, and they didn't think of them as human beings. They just thought of them as another commodity. They would use one up, go on to the next one. That wasn't what we did at all. And I just want to say that before I get into what we had these guys do, because you're not going to believe it. But we were very good to our clerks, and I think the clerks and the assistants that we had, I think they enjoyed working for us, even though I was demanding. I refused to have silly errors that would cost us money, and I was tough to work with a lot. But they were compensated. Well, you can decide whether I respect them or not after I tell you some of the stories. But I think we had a good relationship with the clerks and the traders in our group.
Yeah, I would argue that most clerks on the floor would start somewhere around 25,000, and I think our clerks were paid significantly better than that, and they made a good living. And it wasn't always our clerks that did the stupid stuff, but if you had to tell two stories of your two favorite clerk adventures, tell me, everybody's seen the "Hey, you have a dick on your back" shirt clip from YouTube. And they laugh. Oh, that's the greatest thing a trader's ever done. I'd like to hear the other side of that.
No, not even close. And you know what? I would like to take credit for the exchange banning food on the floor. I think our group And me personally, I think I had a lot to do with them getting rid of the food on the floor. Because the stuff that we would do with the food that wasn't consumed or the bones that were left was pretty good. But you know what? I'll give you one story that doesn't involve one of our clerks. And truthfully, JD, I can't even remember his name. The piss water guy. I don't know if you want to say his name, but I can't remember his name for the life of me. All right, Josh, it is. But so anyway, the best thing about clerks, bless their hearts, is that a lot of them had dependencies. And if you caught one of these clerks at the right time of the month where they just got done snorting a bunch of their paycheck up their nose, or if they just didn't quite manage their money right, they would do anything for a couple $100. And the great thing about that is that I always had a couple $1,000 in my pocket. Why? I don't know. Just because I was a moron, I guess. But it was a volatile combination. So we got this kid, Josh, and so we used to pay him to do all kinds of gross shit on the floor. But so one day he was really hurting. I don't know if he was going out that night and you know, he wanted to be prepared or whatever it was. But he came up to our office, and we started off pretty much having this kid eat anything and everything out of the refrigerator. He ate a traveling tube of toothpaste, traveler size toothpaste, whatever. I mean, it's not that big, but he ate the whole thing. It's absolutely disgusting. And the way the whole things were, not a bet, but the way the whole challenge was set up, we'd say, hey, I'll give you $200 if you could eat the whole tube of toothpaste in 30 seconds. You know, half the time they'd get it done, half they wouldn't. I'd always give him some money just for, you know, for trying and being good sports. So he starts eating the toothpaste, and then he went on to eat this. I mean, this was a Costco-sized jug of mayonnaise that had expired like 3 months before we got to it, and there was probably 2/3 of it left. So we scooped this thing into a bowl, and it's the most gelatinous, disgusting thing you've ever seen. I mean, JD won't even look at this stuff now that he's training. I mean, it would never enter his temple. But so this kid starts eating this, and I think he's got I think it was 5 minutes to eat it. So he gets through, and he's about 4 minutes into it, and about 2/3 of the way done, and he runs into the bathroom and starts yakking this mayonnaise up. So we all follow him into the bathroom. It was me. JD was in there, just so everybody knows that this JD was right along next to me when we were doing this stuff. We get into the bathroom, and I still got that wad of money in my pocket, and I'm feeling, you know, I'm feeling really generous that day. And there's an attorney from down. There was a trading group, and I think we had a couple attorneys who worked on the same floor. There was some older gentleman, suit, tie. He was sitting there washing his hands, and we come running in, and we're all laughing already. The one kid throws up. So this guy is watching us, so he decides to sit in there and watch us. He knows something's going to go down. So we come in, and we have a styrofoam cup, and I'm like, all right, Josh, I'll give you $500 if you take a cup of water out of the toilet and drink it. And I go, but the thing is, you can't flush the toilet. Opens there's 4 stalls in there, and these are heavily used stalls. They're the only ones on the floor, and there's got to be 150, 200 people who actually work on that floor. He gets in the first stall, and there's toilet paper sitting in the bowl, and it's turned upside down, but you can see the shit stains all over it. So he's like, nah, he's not good with that one. He gets to the second stall, and it's crystal clear. I mean, it's like Evian water sitting in there. He gets to the third one, and there is shit stains up and down the bottom of the bowl on this toilet. And the fourth one just had someone didn't flush and had a burrito for lunch or something, and it was awful. So he starts heading into the second stall because it was cleaned, and so I kind of walk in there in front, and I take a leak in the stall, and I go, all right, which one are you going to pick? He's like, I'm not doing it. Now, mind you, we're all laughing, and we're laughing so hard we're all crying at this point. This kid wants the money bad, and the attorney is laughing. He can't control himself. He's just standing there laughing his ass off next to the towels. And so I'm like, all right, I'll give you a chance you can take some water to the urinal. I'll even let you flush it, but I'm only going to give you $300 for it. He's like, no, I won't do it. So I start flushing one of the urinals, and I go, you got 5 seconds to get in here and start drinking some of this water. And we're counting down. All of a sudden, he grabs the cup, puts his hand under the urinal as I'm flushing it, and the water is just cascading down the cup. He fills this thing up. It's damn near full. And now we're all crying and laughing so hard. And I think I was down to $200. And he grabs his cup, and he starts drinking this thing, and this piss water is pouring down his face, down his shirt, but he gets most of it down. So we give him the money. He's feeling good about himself. The attorney's got a story that he's going to share for a lifetime, and apparently I do too, because I'm here on a web with something or whatever it is and telling it to who knows who. But yeah, and we went back into the office, and you know, he proceeded to eat a bunch more shit and made some more money. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he walked out that day with like $1,300 out of the office. It took him an hour and a half to do that. So that's a pretty good afternoon.
Yeah, even even by trading standards, a lot of young guys these days would be happy to make $1,300. Um, I, I got to be honest. I was part of that, and that was pretty ridiculous. I remember a kid eating scabs off of feet. I remember. I mean, we did some.
And that was a huge plantar's wart. That was he was going to the doctor to get removed, and he picked that thing off and ate it.
Uh, I don't even know where to go with that one. All right, I'm going to take a couple of questions. I've got a couple right now. Somebody wants to know: do you still lift, and can you bench 225?
You know what? Somebody is being a jackass, and is that you typing that in? Oh, that's funny. You know what? I'm down about 15 pounds from when I left Chicago, and I still lift a little bit. And can I bench 225? Yeah, I can bench 225, and I still lift. And I'm not going to flex for you because I did that earlier for JD, but yes, I still lift. Did
Of course, I got that. Now, as we as we'll kind of wrap this thing up, what do you what do you hope to do in the future? Are you still trading? Are you active in other markets? I know that kind of when you left, which was 2010 ish, you were trading your own money. You were out of the game. You had moved out of the north side of Chicago, and you are now located down in North Carolina. What are you doing now? How are you? How do you stay mentally active? I know that for me, the transition up to the screen was really tough, just because you didn't have the people there, and you lost kind of the fight. What are you doing to stay active, and what's the next stage look like for you?
All good questions, and I'm not, we certainly don't have enough time for all of them, but as you know, we kind of packed it up after the spring of 2008, and my wife and I took a long. We had two kids at the time who were 3 and 4, and we had not traveled, I think, in 5 years. I mean, we didn't leave Illinois for 5 years while she was pregnant, and we just didn't think it was right while the kids were that young. And so we had a trip planned, I think, for almost a year to travel to the Southeast. And it just so happened that one of my clerks decided to buy 515 futures, um, on the first Friday of February 2008, which happened to be an unemployment, and we dropped a point in the bonds. And I'm sure you remember that, JD. It was not the best time of our career, but so that kind of, that whole event really changed my attitude about risk and what I was willing to risk going forward as far as my own money. And when we went on that trip, we came back, and my wife and I had a long discussion about, was the floor going to be the right place for me? Did I want to go back? Uh, and so we weren't sure at the time. I think I don't know if, I'm not even sure you went back to work yet at that point. But we let most of 2008 go by, and then we reassembled the band in 2009 and came back, and it was the most half-assed attempt at trading ever. There were a bunch of people saying, "Hey, you got to get back down here. It's lucrative. The whole world's collapsing. There's all kinds of money to be made." By the time we got back down there, all the deleveraging was out of the system, and a lot of those customers were just done, and they didn't want to deal with the risk profile of trading anymore. So a lot of the proprietary trading groups for a lot of the large banks were like, you know what, we're gonna, if we're not outright done, we're gonna at least sit on the sidelines for a while. I didn't see it. Just my heart wasn't into it, and I didn't have a good time down there. You weren't having a good time down there. You left before I did. I left shortly after, and that was kind of towards the end of 2009, maybe the third quarter, and I knew then that uh, I sat down with my wife, and we talked, and I said, if we sit around Chicago, I'm going to eventually go back down the floor, or start trading somewhere else. And I said, do you want to, we enjoyed the Southeast in 2008. And she's like, let's move down to the Southeast. So we started looking at cities down here, and ended up choosing Charlotte, which was a great choice. Charlotte is a beautiful city, and it's a great city to raise a family. It fits our family very, very well. And when I got down here, we weren't sure what we were going to do as far as work. If I was going to work again, or if we were going to move into a kind of a more rural area and just kind of go off grid and raise our boys. But we decided to move right into the city. We're about 2 miles from downtown Charlotte. And as some of you know, and some of you may not know, Charlotte's got a great banking history for a city this size. Has a really, really rich history in the financial industry. And for the first couple of years, I wasn't really concerned about what I was going to do, and then I started becoming complacent, and I wasn't active at all, and I just wasn't having a good time, and decided the best thing to do is go back to school and get an MBA, just to, maybe I'd find some inspiration at school, meet some people, and I've been doing that for a year. It's okay. I'm definitely one of the older, if not the oldest, students there, so it's funny, but then I'm just it's tough to consider 26 and 27-year-olds your contemporaries when their life experiences just don't warrant it. But so we got that. And matter of fact, I'm waiting on someone right now to give me a call about a possible interview. For some reason, the last 3 or 4 months, I really want to get back into trading. I loved it. There wasn't, for about 10 years, there wasn't a day where I absolutely didn't love coming to work. I think I just used a big old double negative in that sentence. I loved coming to work for 10 years. Friday afternoons, I just couldn't wait for Monday mornings to show up. And that was gone in a lot of '08 and all of '09 when I was still trading. And I think that I think I have that drive again. And I think if given the right opportunity, even if it's inside of a larger institution, I think I'll be just fine. So that's kind of what I'm looking at right now. Besides that, I've been doing some investing in commercial real estate. I've got a retail center down in Columbia, South Carolina. Great.
Go Gamecocks.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's right. No Clemson fans. We definitely go Gamecocks. And I'm heading down there again next week to look at an apartment complex that I saw last week. So I like the narrative down there. It's the seat of the state government. It's got a great, it's the state universities down there, the head of the university system. It's definitely got a southern feel to the city, but they're doing some good things. So
Solid. Hey, well, we're gonna wrap it up. We've got about 48 minutes now worth of airtime. I want to say thank you. Anything you want to add before we sign off? Or you good here?
no, I'm good. Just appreciate anybody who's actually listening and you stayed in for the whole thing. Thanks for listening. I hope you took something from it.
We actually peaked at 80 viewers today, so that's not bad for an afternoon delight. Hey, I want to thank you. I'm JD. This was BTFDtv, and I want to thank Tim for stopping in and saying hi. And hopefully we'll get him back here some other day on a panel with some of our older, more distinguished guests, and we'll talk rates. So thanks, guys, for listening. And find me on the web. I'm at Left Hash. See ya.